How many people here are from Hamilton? A fair amount of people. I think, to give you an understanding, I come from Grand Rapids, Michigan, which has a lot of similarities, I would say, to Hamilton. It has a population of about 200,000 people, metropolitan population of 1 million. A lot of focus on manufacturing, much like most of Michigan has. So there's a lot of similarities here, and there's a lot of issues with, how do we change the tone of this city, and how do we change the direction of this city to reflect a growing movement of people that are going toward creating a lot of energy in the city. And so I was, in a way, kind of a byproduct of this. I came out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, just at a very young age of 19 years old when I started to do some of these events. But I think what I'm here for, to talk with all of you about, is the fact that the success and the things that you had heard, the 100,000 people that attended these events out of a city of 200,000 people, or the tens and tens of millions of YouTube views that have all come out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, all this focus and attention came because I was in an environment that thrived, that we had a government that was set up so that young people like me could survive. And you'll see this, and you'll see how, because of the rules of our government and some of the private businesses as well, they had rules, but they allowed them to be bent. And when we're able to bend rules, we can form them into beautiful things like sculptures and artwork. So I want to run you through here some of the things, and it's going to go pretty far back to when I was just a little pleb, just a little bacteria, just a nothing of nothing. And there's some pretty humbling material I'm going to share with you today. So let's get started. So if you can see me, this requires a lot of explanation, but this was my very first public event that I did. It was called Zomb. The idea is I had heard, much like a lot of people I'm sure in Hamilton understand this, but I always felt like there were other cities out there that are doing, perhaps doing some really cool stuff as a young person that I could not participate in. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, we have a great symphony, great ballet, great museums, which is great if you have kids, but if you're 19 and you're not the legal drinking age of 21, there's really nothing to do in our city if you're a young person. So I was seeing all these really great things that were happening, perhaps in New York City, flash mobs and things like that in 2007, and I wanted to participate in that. I wanted to bring some of that here simply so I could participate in it myself. Total selfish reasons. I really could not care less about my city or anything like that. These were very selfish reasons I had. So Zomb, the idea is that it starts with a few people that are zombies and everyone else has Nerf guns, and you chase each other in a public park and try and tackle each other or avoid getting turned into a zombie. This, of course, totally illegal, trespassing after dark in a public park, but we did it anyways. And it started, not with crowds of 30,000 people, but it was me and 16 people. And in the previous photo, if you were wondering, that was my camouflage, was to just wear all black from head to toe. It was like a moving black hole, as you saw, run across the hills. It did not camouflage. But this was my first leadership experience. I was a kid who had, I think, I'm trying to translate it to you guys, but I did very badly in school. I really had no focus. My future was maybe going to a community college to study music, which has no future, of course, but I was a creative person. It really doesn't. When you sign up for it, it says, warning, this degree will never get you a job. It literally says these words. So future is bleak. But this was my first experience with, leadership. And so we started with just a few kids, and it started to grow and grow. And one of the first experiences I had was I used to have hair down to my shoulders, and my first experience with dealing with the city government, and they're allowing me to create this work, was the fire department eventually showed up because we started being, over 100 kids now that are attending this, walking down, suburban, quiet neighborhoods, mobs of hundreds of people with guns, so it looks like it. So we were kind of freaking people out. And we came to them, and they said, this is totally illegal. We can shut you down right now. But what they did which set a precedent that continued on and on and on, that was so instrumental and so much happening, was even though they didn't understand this, even though this was just beyond stupid, why would you do that? You could break your arm, stupid. These 60-year-old guys were like, you know what, I would never do that, but I'm going to allow you to do it. I'm going to say yes and give you a few rules. Now, I remember we went on to do other things. Like, this gave me the confidence to then hold a pillow fight. This gained a little bit of national coverage, but we had 1,000 people come out to this event. And it was my first legal event. So I was very excited about this. And this was very, very exciting because here's how it went. And as I was like, there's a few people that have been coming to these zombie games. Maybe, now I'm living downtown. I want to do some stuff in this area. Maybe I could do something publicly. I see these improv everywhere guys in New York City and stuff like that, and they're doing pillow fights. Man, what if I could do something like that? And so, I have all this fear. And I'm thinking, I could just invite everyone on Facebook, and maybe, hopefully, like 50 people will come, and that's it. I'm just worried that there's some guy with bricks and a pillow, or some guy, like 2 people show up and they're really creepy and I just want to run away. Who knows what's going to happen? But I did, and basically this was, an event that there was no media behind it. I didn't come from a wealthy family in any way. I was I would say, lower middle class, I suppose. And so this idea, though, there was such an energy in our young people that even though it was just me putting this together, 1,000 people came out to this with no media coverage or corporate sponsorship. It was just from kids who needed to do something new. And the key thing here that played such a huge role was the role of government in allowing this to happen. Here's what happened. So this is Rosa Parks Circle that you see right here. It's a nice public area in the downtown. I was like, we'll just do it there, and it'll just happen. It just takes place, just like, I'll eat cereal in my living room. It's about the same amount of restrictions. Well, little did I know, 2 weeks before this event, they were like, so where's your $1 million insurance policy? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I thought things just happen. It's like, no, you have to reserve the space. You have to have insurance. You have to have your city permits. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just like, wow, well, you know what? I guess we're just not doing this. But what happened is they said, no, you can still do your event. You can still do this pillow fight. All you have to do is apply for this grant, and there had been $1,000 city grant set up for events just like this, just free, fun, cultural events just like this. And so I think the insurance cost was $400, which would still have been astronomical to me, but that was able to cover that. And my city permits, and we were able to hold this event. And because of it, this was aired on CNN and got tons of local coverage and started this narrative of downtown Grand Rapids as a place that is exciting, where new things are happening, where young people are putting together work and tons of people are coming out just to have fun. What a positive story. I'll give you the other side of this. I had heard when I did some speaking in Detroit that Detroit, Michigan is well set up and was going to have a pillow fight, but there was a crackdown, and they brought out the SWAT team, literally the SWAT team, and there was a crackdown on the pillow fight. If that had happened with this, there would have been none of the things that you will see. And it's amazing how just these goofy little things that you can only look at an idea. And an idea is so fragile. It is so easy to look at this event and be like, what if someone puts a brick in a pillow? It's like, well, that guy's a murderer. There's nothing related to my event. I'm not inciting murder with a pillow fight. And it's so easy to shut down ideas like that, but we have to understand that that is just the starting point, and that this was just the starting point. And I'm sure there are young people with bright-eyed ideas, and if we can only give them the opportunity to grow themselves creatively, we can have this homegrown talent that just takes over. So there's some funny photos from this. These people took it very seriously. This guy looks like he would have a brick and a pillow, but he didn't. And so we organized it by color. So there's blue team, there's green team, yellow team. Here's me in the middle, and this is my first time ever doing this. And there's the good and the bad and the ugly theme song is just blaring, just fight music. I have an air horn, and I almost die. It was just mayhem. Yes, we had a ton of fun. So after this, I'm like, oh my gosh, we can just do anything. Okay, it's October now. There's Halloween. What if we did a giant zombie walk? What if everyone dressed up like zombies and we walked around downtown? And we had 5,000 people that came out to. That's Rosa Parks Circle, the same area you just saw, and now that was 5,000 people. And I remember with the city, originally they were like, just keep it on the sidewalks, just, while you go along your path. And it was just like mayhem. It was just entire cars were embodied for about 45 minutes and couldn't move because it was body to body. And I was just choosing streets to go down. I was like, that looks like a good street. I'll just walk down that way. And then 45 minutes gone out of people's lives. And this was even tougher because still, the city was having their limits pushed. I remember hearing the most odd, tactical police sirens that were going off and getting lieutenants giving me voicemails like, you have to have these guys stand down, and it got very, very serious. And yet they still saw, holy cow, I didn't know we had young people in Grand Rapids. Look at all these young people. Where did they come from? And they saw that there was value in that. And they saw that regardless of that they needed to contain that. And they needed to find a way to make it work within their system instead of just simply cracking down on it. And luckily, we were able to move on it. So we kept going and going. Luckily, I kind of got brought down to earth at this point. I had to realize that with our ideas, it's always about getting to the benefit, getting to understand with any creative work what is the end result that gets a person excited to be there. Even if our goals are, very community-based, and you can still run into problems. I ran into some problems because, everyone was giving me a heck of a lot of crap, and they were saying, Rob, there's these thousands of people, why don't you do an event where you just clean the streets? And I learned very quickly that people don't want to clean the streets. That's why they don't do that. That's why there aren't events of thousands of people out roaming the streets cleaning. It's not fun. But I tried to do something where we held an event where the idea was, okay, what if everyone dresses like Santa Claus and we all bring presents or candy and we go around downtown and give them out to people and it's really feel good. And it was 15-degree wind chill and I want to say 60 people came out. And it was we go up to people in bars and be like, why are you trying to drug me with this candy that you're giving me? Complete failure. We had 5,000 people just 2 months ago, and now we were down to 60. And it really, I think, brought me down to earth to always remember, whenever we're doing creative work, we have to say, why? What's the point? What is the effect for the user? I know it doesn't matter how it's executed. It's about how it's received. But I kept going. I kind of went home and did some thinking and saw, okay, you know what? Maybe that was it. Maybe that would be the only thing that I ever do. I'm just the pillow fight guy or the zombie guy, and that's going to get old when I'm 26, and now it's getting a little weird to be that old doing that kind of stuff. But I was like, whatever, maybe that's my only thing. But I was encouraged by some of the leaders within the city to keep going and to keep trying things, and they were still granting, these $1,000 grants to make this work happen. And so I was like, you know what would be fun? What if we got 30,000 pieces of sidewalk chalk and just gave it away? And just see what would people do if we just gave away chalk to basically anyone and everyone that comes downtown, and see what would happen. And oh my gosh, you can imagine some of the local hotels and businesses being like, well, people are just going to spray paint everything. There'll just be graffiti all over downtown because of this. And that's, once again, the fragility of ideas. And I'm sure some of you understand this, but it's amazing that when you're proposing an idea, just the ridiculous negatives that people propose, that people are like, that sounds like something that could happen. Just, all these families just bringing out the spray paint, just spray paint all over the city. Well, you know what? Even though I stupidly held this in April where it rains 1 out of 3 days and it's an outdoor Sidewalk Chalk event, we still had beautiful weather, and 5,000 people came out, and it was like a color bomb went off downtown. And it would only cost like $1,000, but think of all the businesses that were benefiting, all the people that were eating there or shopping there. The beautiful events that were taking place with all the people that are holding, this art, just walking around looking at their feet. It really showed off again and again and again that there was exciting things happening here. We kept doing more stuff, and so it kind of just was starting to snowball from here. We had a 4th of July water balloon event where we had thousands of people dress up as the Redcoats and Patriots and have a water balloon fight. It was patriotic, but didn't historically add up. We did other events. We kept going. We did an electronic music night, and this was very, very tough because a lot of times what was starting to happen is we were running into actual laws. For example, you couldn't have music over, I think, 55 decibels after 10 p.m. on a Saturday night in the middle of summer. I'm sure some of you people can understand this. And we had to hold this event. And even though this event brought out, I want to say, 3,000 to 5,000 people in the pouring rain, this was a local show. These kids, all we were doing was playing dance music with, local DJs, and that was it. And all these people were coming out because this did not exist, because young people had nothing for them. There wasn't anything like this that they could enjoy. So we had to take it even further. And this was really when it got just full out crazy. This was an event where, as you can see, that is like about 4 or 5 city blocks just on that strip right there. And what we did we did launch 100,000 paper airplanes. So there was a bunch of skyscrapers. Skyscrapers. It was about 12 stories tall. We'll call them skyscrapers for Grand Rapids. Let's give them that. So what we did is we color coordinated each building to have a different color. And then one after another, we would set off airplanes by just throwing them over these buildings. Now, it was a beautiful event, and it brought out the largest single crowd in Grand Rapids since JFK, John F. Kennedy, 1960, U.S. president. I never know how much you guys know, so I just say it. So forgive me. I don't think you're dumb. I'm just covering my bases. So ever since then, since 1960 was the single largest crowd that had ever assembled for this event. 30,000 people came out to watch paper airplanes fly off buildings. It cost $4,000 just to buy the planes. And for all our environmentally conscious people, there was actually, once the planes landed, all these kids that came out to this, it became a currency where kids would have 2 blues and a green, but they didn't have a red, so they gave away the blue to get to the red with other kids. So literally we had a giant cleaning crew, but there was nothing to pick up because every kid picked up these planes and took them home with them. So 30,000 people came out to this event, and I can't describe enough to you what it was like to go up to the real estate companies, go up to the heads of real estates and be like, I want to, just trust me, you've seen some of the weird flash mob stuff I've done, but I want you to let me get right to the edge of your building, 12 stories up, big thing of paper airplanes. I just want to chuck them out over this building as there's tons of people below looking up as these pointy things just come, it's okay. No one's gonna get hurt, I promise. And we had 25 people all up against the ledges of the building, and no one was hurt. But man, it's always about just figuring out how we can get to that yes and point. And so we kept growing. That electronic music night that had maybe 3,000 people, now we're up to 15,000 people that are coming out. Look at all those young people. And this event right here was probably the first time that we were really seeing the decisions that the city had made pay off. And they were really starting to see what was possible. Now this kid with his, 16 people running around playing with Nerf guns, it grew into, I don't know what the length is in the metric system, but it was 500 feet long to create this water slide. And what we did was, it was a $40,000 water slide in the middle of downtown Grand Rapids on a very steep street. And it brought out 30,000 people, and for a whole weekend, in the heat of August, anyone could ride this for free. Anyone could ride this for free. You had to wait 5 hours, I'm sorry, but you could ride, you could zoom under street lights and things like this, going down the heart of the city. I remember I was just walking up that hill one day, because I always had to walk down for meetings, and I'd walk up this hill and be like, man, it's so hot on this hill, it's so steep. And I was like, well, maybe it would be easier to get down if we built a water slide, so we did. Pretty simple. But this is where we started to get coverage beyond just Grand Rapids, because a lot of people in Grand Rapids heard about this, but we needed to push this identity further out. And so this started to gain more and more traction. And one of the toughest things is doing something that gets noticed outside of this area. There may be similarities in some places in Canada, but it always felt like there's this bubble where even though these great things are happening, it was so hard to get, national news coverage for some of these things. And we were starting to see the fruits of our labor. New York Times or NPR talking about, a different kind of urban decline was some of the headlines that were running. And it was an ability for us to continue to push this narrative that Grand Rapids is different, that it's not like, a Flint or Detroit, and there is growth and excitement here. This paid off even further with the Grand Rapids Lip Dub video. And we'll see if we have time. Do we have time? I think we have time. This is where things really hit another gear. With this event, what we did was Newsweek had called a magazine in the U.S., had called Grand Rapids a dying city. And so we've seen, there's been a lot of fun things happening, some of which you saw here today, other people doing good things as well. And we wanted to show, no, that this isn't a dying city. This is a very lively, exciting place to be right now. And so we made this video as a response to Newsweek. To this bad publicity we were getting, this video showed just how exciting it was. And so it was a lip dub video where we lip synced the words to Don McLean's American Pie, all without any edits, multiple cameras, or anything. It's 9 minutes long, start to finish. We just hit record, sat back on a vehicle, and we just went. And you'll see it here today. So we're going to play it real quick, and then we're going to keep talking. But I want you to, before we play this, to look for a couple key things, because this is where things completely changed. Because with this, the power of video and viral videos became enormous. This is where a lot of YouTube was really starting to hit its stride at this point. And now instead of, 10,000, 30,000 people attending and experiencing this event, we were reaching millions of people, and national news organizations were covering it. But this event, even though it was estimated to be worth millions and millions of dollars, Roger Ebert of Chicago calling it the greatest music video ever made, all this came for about half the cost of that water slide you just saw. And it was because anyone could experience it. So I want you to look for a few things in how we create viral content and how we, for cheap, get our story out to the world. And it was to make an emotional connection, with the viewer. And so I want you to see if you can watch this and see if you can feel it yourself. So we're going to let this play, and then we'll get back into it.
Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Can you help me out a little on that? Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Then good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, saying this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. You can sing all the words if you know them. Long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance. Maybe they'd be happy for a while. But February made me shiver with every paper I deliver. Bad news on the doorstep. I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Did you write the book of love, and do you have faith in God above? If the Bible tells you so, now do you believe in rock and roll? Can music save your mortal soul? And can you teach me how to dance real slow? Well, I know that you're in love with him, 'cause I saw you dancing in the gym. You both kicked off your shoes. Man, I dig those rhythm and blues. I was a lonely teenage bronc and buck with a pink carnation and a pickup truck. Oh, but I knew I was out of luck the day the music died. I started singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Oh, my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Then good old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, saying this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Now for 10 years we've been on our own, and moss grows fat on a rolling stone. That's not how it used to be. Why, when the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat he borrowed from James Dean, and a voice that came from you and me. Oh, and while the king was looking down, the jester stole his thorny crown. The courtroom was adjourned. No verdict was returned. Yet while Lennon read a book on Marx, a quartet practiced in the park, and we sang dirges in the dark the day the music died. We were singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Then good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Helter skelter in the summer swelter, the birds flew off with a fallout shelter. 8 miles high and falling fast. It landed foul on the grass. The players tried for a forward pass, with the jester on the sidelines in a cast. Now the halftime air was sweet perfume, while the sergeants played a marching tune. We all got up to dance, oh, but we never got the chance. As the players tried to take the field, the marching band refused to yield. Do you recall what was revealed the day the music died? We started singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Oh, my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Oh, and then generation lost in space with no time left to start again. So come on, Jack, be nimble, Jack, be quick. Jack Flash sat on a candlestick, 'cause fire is the devil's only friend. Oh, and as I watched him on the stage, my hands were clenched in fists of rage. No angel born in hell could break that Satan spell. And as the flames climbed high into the night to light the sacrificial rite, I saw Satan laughing with delight the day the music died. He was singing, bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Oh, my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. I met a girl who sang the blues, and I asked her for some happy news. She just smiled and turned away. And I went down to the sacred store where I'd heard the music years before, but the man there said the music wouldn't play. And in the streets the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed. Not a word was spoken, the church bells all were broken. And the three men I admire most, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, why, they caught the last bus for the coast the day the music died. And they were singing, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, saying, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. They were singing what? Bye, Miss American Pie. Oh, the Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this'll be the day that I die.
Thank you. So, all of that from one little kid who just wanted to run in a public park with 16 other dudes with Nerf guns. That's all we wanted to do. But that came from just that little germ of an idea, and it came because of the city's ability for us to bend those rules and let us continue to let this snowball go and go and go. Basically, what you saw was a walking tour of downtown Grand Rapids, Michigan. It involved showing off everything we have, all our, from mayors to city commissioners, artists, news organizations, basically as much as we possibly could of what Grand Rapids is into just this one video, and to show the vibrancy, show the energy that we had. And millions and millions and millions of people saw this, and it all just came from, I think our budget was $40,000 to put all that together. I mean, the return on investment was incredible, and that's really one of the most exciting things with this. And you can tell with this video, and I'm sure you can tell that we were really going for an emotional connection, because this is where we flipped, and everything, at least for me and a lot of times for the city, was a turning point. We now, literally, it's almost a running joke in Grand Rapids, because every other week there's a new top 10 best cities, up-and-coming cities, whatever it is. It's so many lists. There's like 50, 100 lists that the city is now on, all about how great the city is. Maybe they're just scared we'll make another video if they put us on a bad list. But hey, that's okay with us. So really, and this was, this is our, our Michigan city, manufacturing heavy, but really we were able to show off the cultural connections that we had here. And so from here, I just went crazy. I went and we started doing a lot of things because we started to see how with video now, we have the ability for anyone in the world to equally experience the creative work and to experience what it's like to be in the city and to experience some of the aspects of Grand Rapids. It doesn't matter if you're born in Australia in 30 years, you can still watch that video and have more or less the same connection that all of you are having with it today, or someone in Grand Rapids had when it came out 3 years ago. So that was really a turning point. So we continued to go on. I started to realize maybe I should do this for a living and music isn't for me. Continued on, and so we started doing some fun things. Like, for example, we saw that perhaps we could predict what the news was going to be, and so we could create work that would then enhance that. One of the biggest things that I think led to the success of the Lipped Up video was the fact that, it's 2011, we're just coming out of the Great Recession. And so there's this narrative, America's on its way down, and here is heartland America fighting back against, elitist East Coast, news organization calling, this great American city dying. Well, here, take this, just such red meat, that it was such, I think, an interesting story because, that was what the national dialogue about where is the U.S. heading. And so it really capitalized on that national conversation. And so as we look to try and bring national attention to our cities in Canada, we have to think about what is the national mood, what is the national perception, how can we play upon that? And so we did little experiments with that. Like, for example, a big thing is basketball in the week of March in the U.S. A lot of college basketball gets a lot of excitement. And so we were like, what if the night before March Madness starts, which is this giant college tournament for basketball, what if we released a shot of a basketball shot from 200 feet up out of a helicopter? And we did, and it cost like $500 or something like that, and it was covered by just countless national news organizations because we started to understand the timing and we understood what people's perceptions were and what people were looking for, and we gave that to them. What does a news producer, what are they looking for? What do they want to see? What are they expecting? And how can we give them something that furthers the conversation they already want to have? So we kept going. We did another tourism video for Pure Michigan, which is the tourism arm of Michigan. And we had multi-million views from people all across the state coming together to lip sync along to a song. This was kind of funny. If you remember the Harlem Shake, I'm so sorry, but yes, we did one too. And it was to kind of promote some of the retirement homes and the elderly in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so we did a fun Harlem Shake, and it got 750,000 views with just showing up. We did another video with a country band where we did an April Fool's Day prank where we made it look like we had driven in front of the Google Street View car and had made a music video out of basically following them. And it looked completely authentic, and a lot of people bought onto it. And this is the piece. Has anyone seen this of a homeless veteran transformation? I would actually put this video together. And this, I think, is the culmination of so many things that we talked about here today, about the ability for people to see beyond something, to see the potential in an idea. And you can imagine, little backstory with this video, and I'm going to show it to you shortly, but what we did is we took a homeless veteran, had been living in poverty and homeless for decades, a lot of alcohol addiction, and we took him and showed him what it would be like if, no Photoshop or anything like that, but what if we completely changed his look, and would there be an emotional resonance there, both with himself and the viewer, and what would he look like if we took all this back and made him look like us? This video currently has 18.5 million YouTube views, and it's raised in just 2 weeks for the nonprofit that we did this for, which was a homeless veteran organization in Grand Rapids. All this attention, and we raised over $60,000 in just 2 weeks from this video. And it all came from, $5, $10, $20 online donations. It all came from this. And yes, our budget was $500 for this. Honestly, it could have been zero, but we had some travel costs that they were kind enough to reimburse. But other than that, all of that for nothing. And these ideas are here, like even in this audience. I think the ideas are here to do stuff like that and have that kind of impact, but it just requires us to try, just to try. I think one of the biggest things I ever learned from all my work was that, when we were doing this, we never asked, like, what are we making, or, how much, will I be able to take home at the end of the day from this, when we were doing like the lip dub video, for example, I remember a water main had burst in my like cheap little apartment, burst a hole like this big into my like apartment wall, and it literally turned my entire kitchen into like a sauna. And after that had finished flooding my apartment, I now had this squirrel that I was now living with. And for 2 weeks, it would come down and steal my food. So I would like take little pieces of bread and like put it up in the like hole in the wall and be like, "Squirrel God, just don't come down right now. I'll just give you this bread. Don't come and eat mine. I'll just bring it right to you so you don't come down here and get freaked out when I walk in." That was what I was living like. But because of that, because I was just giving and giving and giving, and I was just producing without looking for something in return, eventually it was able to be returned to me. And it was something where because I had given, so then people gave to me. And so that I gave, I am now able to show you this video. So I want you to take a look at this and look for some of the things that I have talked to you about creating viral content to promote areas and cities and things like that, and some of the work that people are doing in your city. Look for the emotional connection. Look for the impact that it makes, because these ideas, I think, are here today as well. So we're going to roll it, and then we will be just about done. After this, we'll be all set, but I'm going to stick around. I know we have a break afterwards, so I'm going to hang out, and I'll be around for the next half hour, whatever it is, and we can all chat. So thank you, and enjoy. Thank you. Just one last thing, just because I'm sure some of you might be curious, Jim actually is now, he has been over 250 days sober. He has gotten dozens of job offers. He's gone through rehab. He's gone through a halfway house, graduated from both of them, is now just about moved into his new place, which he pays for himself personally, and is about to secure his own employment as well. So he has gone through an amazing process. So just wanted to keep you guys abreast. This really did, it really did change him. So thank you for having me. I'll be sticking around. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.